where we introduced you to what Marvel is. The idea for these next 3 days is to take you through the finer details and make you comfortable with the new method of working under Marvel. And sorry, can you hear me at the back? Can you hear me now? Of Marvel, so that you're comfortable by the end of 3 days and you're used to the new style of working. It's not really a change in the style of working so much so as improving the processes, having a better feel of what we are already doing. Without taking much time, I would like to call upon Mr. Rajesh Nair to address the audience and to take us through what his expectations are for the offsite and I guess for the next.
Yeah, all of you can hear me, and my request is we have also. So please learn from their perspective. So you can keep your laptops and phones aside for some time, because in this session you don't need it. While I think you had mails that please carry your laptops, it's more for tomorrow. So please do that. So if you recall February 13th and the presentation that we saw that day about Marvel, I ended my presentation with this line. The first line being attitude is everything. Does anybody recollect it? Yeah. So when you look at these lines, it's not because I love tennis, it's also because I love tennis. So I chose those lines, but it is in a book called Open by Andre Agassi, and I'm not selling that book, don't worry. But if you may like to read a book which is has many life lessons, this is one of them. So out here there are some key words, and I know in the team I've personally met about 50% of the team in taking introductions and knowing about your own journeys. I had found one tennis player and who resigned, right, Prashant? I think one tennis player was there other than me. But all of you who have played racket games, there were a lot of badminton players and TT and squash players. So service, does it resonate anything in our mind? The word service?
No, it's servicing the customer.
Yeah. In our business, it's servicing the customer, but those who play the game will know that 50% of the game of tennis is service, and 50% of service is the toss. So what does it mean for us? You know, if in tennis service is the competitive advantage, what is that one thing for us to know and do which will make us far superior than what our competitors will be? I think that's what this message is about. When it's a message, so service in itself is being able to take your customers along and make them a wow factor. That of course is there. What you say, Sundar, is correct. But apart from that, I'm just looking at the word in a different way, that how does it become a competitive advantage? Yeah, Ray.
Early mover advantage?
Yes, early mover advantage, because through service you can dictate. And that's the point I think our CEO has been saying, and this line from what Sundar also said is apt, that indeed through great service is where you can create differentiation, because after all products are commodities today in banking. We create something, it is copied very quickly. So if we succeed in Marvel, it will be copied very quickly. There is no competitive advantage which will remain except for the mentality of service which is there. The other aspect of love all, I think it's very important for us. For those who don't appreciate the game, I'll not ask the questions because we are running a little late. But every game starts with love all, right? It doesn't matter which game. So which racket game, all the racket games start with that. What it means for us is that when we have a new start, and new starts are there in every day of our lives. You know, it's not about that, oh gosh, I've done so many things wrong, can I start afresh? I think life gives us an opportunity to start afresh every time. It's about our thought process. So today when we stand here, we are actually looking at a change in the way we operate. And therefore we start at love all. That's the key thing which I wanted to address from this particular quote, and it's very, very powerful. Each time I read it, and especially when I'm down, I love those lines to pick me up and pull me to a different direction. I read these lines very often. So I just thought I should share something like this when we are building something new together. And Marvel is something which will be our life for some time, at least, until we find something else to replace it. So having said that, while we look at change today, I'm not going to talk of numbers, etc., etc. That burden I've given to the zonal heads for the third day. So what I would like to state is that there are 7 principles in which I've been articulating this in various interactions with many of you. And these 7 habits, so to say, are the ones which will take us forward. During the course of the next 3 days, we'll end up discussing a lot of this, because it's with these 7 habits that we can create a change mentality in us. And what does it mean for us? We've also articulated that from a thought process. So there is consistency in thought process for it. I'm not going to read out each aspect of it or what it means to be proactive. But there is one commonality in the 7 principles. The first 3 is about us, how we can change. The next 3 is about interdependence. And the final one is that how you keep building that competence. So the first 3 is about us, how do we change ourselves. The next 3 is about interdependence. So how does this room collaborate together, or how does the room collaborate with teams outside which is not here, which is very important to our success. And finally, how do we keep building our competence at each level. And it's a day-by-day journey. It's not about taking a big leap. It's something we should do day by day and ball by ball. So with these few thoughts, I just wanted you to anchor your whole thoughts in the next 3 days in these 7 principles. Plus, what we'll do is to see one of the great players of Indian cricket speak on not these 7 principles directly, but on what his life journey was and how even with his stature, he sort of learnt every day. And therefore, competence at the core of our being is very, very important. So let's play the video. We'll see, I don't need to introduce the cricketer or anything, so we'll save time. So let's hear him speak about his life's journey, and then possibly we'll take some time to discuss it, because then Subrata and Partha also will speak, and at the end of it we can reflect on this as a common theme and how do we achieve what we want to achieve. Thank you.
Banking, and then being the group compliance officer, and currently the head of policy and risk for small and medium businesses and BLJ Group. Ma'am, I would like to
introduced because I think I have worked with most of the department, most of you all at some point of the time or other.
I think this is a new audience. So
no, but that's a new group, but the audience is still old. Yeah, right, guys. How many of you all have already been in ICICI for over a year now? Okay, so this, I'm sure at some point of time, somewhere I would have picked up the phone and screamed at somebody or the other, right? Yeah. Okay. So next 3 days, you all have to listen to Marvel. So I'm not going to spend too much time on Marvel. I will also speak on some other matters that I think is of importance, and to get an audience like this is very difficult. So I'm going to spend a little while not speaking only on Marvel, because Marvel for me is a Marvel, as I look at it, is a decision, is a mechanism, okay, to enhance decision making. It in no way replaces you. Okay, guys. So first of all, let me be very, very clear about this: that you come before that machine. It's a very different thing to say that the machine comes before me. Why am I saying this? Is first of all of you are in the field. Okay, you all should know the customer first before you bring something and pass it through that new machine that we have, or a new decisioning tool that we have. And therefore, your confidence has to precede, okay, that decision of that machine. I don't want that any of you should pick up any junk that you find, and I may sound a little harsh over here, but do not pick up any junk without understanding, put it through that machine, and then get some PD score and start fighting backwards. Okay, so that since the PD score has been met, okay, you should approve it. Because sometimes we mistake, and if that is the way it has to happen, then we don't need people on the field. The machine can decide everything. Yeah. So for me, you are the most important people over here. Okay, you are the people who are going to decide whether to do or not to do that proposal. So you carry that responsibility with you. And the reason why I'm saying all this is, we have tried multiple times to do, to make a success in this segment. And initially when this team was being formed, Vishaka and me, we were having a discussion. And there were times when we asked ourselves that, do we really want to venture into this segment? It's a very, very difficult segment. The probability of failure is extremely high in this segment. And why am I saying this? Okay, think about it. Think about this customer, okay, who is the target segment. He's a successful businessman. All of you all will agree, right? Because unless nobody starts as a mid-market client. They always start small. So if they have reached that level, that means they have succeeded in their business when they were small. So first of all, he's a small guy who has succeeded. He's probably got lots of orders on hand. He thinks he can become big in the future. Okay, now all this put together, a lot of ego does come in between. Okay, he doesn't want to listen to anybody. He's impatient. And I'm drawing this pen picture because over years, this is the type of customer that comes to my mind. He's impatient. He's got, as of now, some banks are running after him, wanting to offer him funding. That's when he starts thinking big and he starts diverting funds. Because he's impatient, right? He doesn't have the time to wait for the term loan or to discuss with somebody or to draw those projections. He starts diverting his working capital towards his, long-term desire of putting up some industry. Instead of one window, he'll create 3 windows, and he doesn't need to ask you because he believes he knows things. He knows how to do his business. So he's not listening also. So this is typically the type of customer you will tend to meet, and therefore it becomes very difficult to probably communicate. He also believes that since he has succeeded in being small, he doesn't want to offer any securities to you. Even if he has offered securities when he was small, he wants to now withdraw it because he believes he has succeeded. He starts taking orders, bidding probably for prices that are lesser than the cost of production to show a higher top line. All of these are typically what you see. And I'm not saying everyone will be like this. But I'm saying that is why this segment is so difficult. And therefore, typically your past won't tell about him as much because he was small then, right? He did his business well, he did it cautiously. And the future, he is very ambitious. So it is that point of time that you are meeting the customer, which is the MMG between a SME and between the large corporate. Yeah, that is that segment which you are trying to address. Now, should we not be in this segment? Of course, we have to be there. If we are not there, we are not there with him on his journey of success, to becoming large. And at that point of time, if you are not there, then you lost the race again. So this is literally like, if I can think of somebody else as a simile to this, I would think of a child in adolescence. Okay, how many of you all have children between the age of 12 to 17? So some of you have, but I tell you, for those of you who don't have, you have a tough time. Okay, because by then the child is believing that he knows everything. He's got friends who influence him, and it's very, very typical. It's actually an SME, it's actually an MMG customer. Okay, he believes he knows everything in life. Okay, my friends have told me, so parents are not supposed to be the best judge over here, and they have some great idea for the future, and they've left back their childhood where they're, still sort of a little afraid of things. So, in this period when the child is growing by 5 years, from 12 to 17, probably the parent grows by 20 years. Right? Merely due to the stress. They don't get scared, okay? We'll all pass through it. Okay, I've passed through it, so all of you are going to. Right? But it is at that time that as a parent, and I can say that this is me, and I know at least Partha will agree with me, and Rajesh?
Yes.
The child is also what well, right?
MMG.
It is at the MMG stage. So at that time, as a parent, you become extra cautious and you're watching your child to see, is he or she getting out of the way he or she should be behaving. It's that time as a parent, you have to move out of being a parent and being a little bit of a friend, okay, to ensure that, there is transparency and enough, understanding between both of them, and wherever things are going wrong, to guide the person back into, or the child back into, what you think is at least right. Okay, somewhere in between, somewhere you lose, somewhere you win, but you are at least fairly okay. So once you get into this this relationship, and once we believe that okay, you are comfortable, Marvel is comfortable, you got the approval through. After that, you need for this segment to succeed, you need to be actually constantly engaging with the customer. Unlike where you do a lap, or even in certain SME, smaller SME cases, you can let it be. Okay, and start monitoring, on a quarterly basis by the transactions that you see. In this segment, you have to be consistently in touch with your customer. Because only then you will know whether he's got some plans for the future that you think are really, too ambitious, and, having very ambitious plans and not having, because this guy doesn't even have enough equity, he doesn't have enough capital. So most of the time he'll go and try to borrow and try to do short-term borrowings with NBFCs and trying to fill in that gaps. So if you start noticing that sort of behavior, it's up to you, just like it's up to a parent, to sort of bring the person to the right direction, and also to keep a constant watch and see whether you really need to continue that relationship, or you need to just say, okay, fine, this is where we stop. But that's not the intention. The intention is to provide him with the right facility. If he is indeed needing long-term funds, quickly turn around and give him a long-term funding rather than having him divert that short-term funds into long-term. So, to make this SME success a success story, or MMG a success story, is not just dependent on Marvel. It's actually dependent on all of you. Marvel is going to add it to that decision making. It's supposed to smoothen out the whole process. It's supposed to be giving you an additional confirmation that indeed what you thought is right. Okay? And eventually it's up to you to get this relationship onboarded and also monitor it consistently. Right? So I'm not going to take any more of your time than this. Of course, you're open for, we can have question and answers. I don't know whether you want to do it now, you want to do it later. If you want to ask,
we can have it,
it's fine.
Q&A we can have together, where all Zoom and everybody can also.
Okay, fine. So this is I just wanted to lay down the fact that don't please think this is the answer to everything. This is going to enhance your decision making. It's also sort of a confirmation of your decision. The great will oversee it. This is a difficult segment, but we'll succeed together. Yeah, and it's all an attitude. It's a mindset. We need to quickly turn around proposal. This is going to help us over there, and to limit ourselves to certain areas of questioning. That I think together we will all discover and we will all manage. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Nice to work in, but a 9-to-5 job for me was not really something I was cut out to do. So I've never really been in the corporate side of things, or I've never worked in a corporate area. But what I thought I would do is maybe just share a little bit of my journey and some stories and things that I've learned over the years of playing 25 years of sort of first-class cricket and maybe 16 years of international cricket. And things that I learned, I had the privilege and really the opportunity to play cricket for India, which I think really for me was a great privilege. It was a great honor to represent India and just to represent the fans of India. I think just the passion that we have, the passion that I've seen for cricket in this office and from the people that I've met, just every day just reminds me how privileged I was and how lucky I was to represent India. Also the honor of just playing with some great cricketers, playing with and against some of the greatest cricketers and legends of the game. I had the honor and privilege of doing that. So what I thought I would just maybe through a series of slides just share just certain things that I learned, maybe stories, things that meant something to me, helped me in my cricketing journey, and I hope some of that will resonate with you, and some of it might not resonate with you. I like to call it the wall speaks, even though sometimes I find that the wall, just that nickname or thing that I was called the wall, was quite a funny one, how it sort of came about. I was sort of playing cricket and it was around 2004 or 5 or 6 and I started doing pretty well and I had a couple of really big series. And then somebody said, somebody said, I sort of saw it for the first time in a newspaper, the wall, said something like, Rahul Dravid, the wall or something. It was an article that came out. And I couldn't help but feel that, here was some very clever editor or some clever boy or girl sitting on a desk in a newspaper somewhere, actually nicknaming me the wall. looking ahead to a future headline. Because sure enough, in cricket, as you know, you are going to fail and you are going to have tough times. So when you look ahead, there has been a good headline there, another brick in the wall falls down, or the wall breaks. And that's true, and that's what happened. And I struggled in 2007 and 8, so suddenly the wall that actually seemed quite a nice thing to be called at that stage, a few years later seemed, no, it's not a very good thing. Someone's been very clever and really set me up for it. So, yeah. A lot of times, when you sort of play the game and you come to things like this and people introduce you, they always remember the nice things that have happened in your career, and all the achievements that you've had. Every felicitation function I go to now, or every corporate event I speak to, they list all my statistics and they say, oh, so many number of hundreds. He's done really well, and it's a fantastic, achievement. This is what he's achieved. But a lot of times, they sort of ignore what you haven't done particularly well, or the criticism that you've received in your life. And honestly, if you were to really look at the career of an international sportsman or an international cricketer, you actually find that we fail more often than we succeed. Cricketers, by definition, as batsmen, you generally fail a lot more than you succeed. Even if you consider a 50 as a benchmark of a successful batsman, every time you go out to bat, you want to score 100. That's possibly not going to happen. So you can say, okay, if I get to 50, it's a pretty good achievement. But generally, most batsmen will fail or not cross 50, 80 or 70, 80% of the time when they play. So you get used to dealing with failure a lot, get used to dealing with criticism a lot. And I found myself in a similar kind of situation in 1998. I started my career in 1996. I started out primarily, I grew up wanting to play Test cricket for India. That was what was a big dream for me. I grew up in Bangalore. My father loved the game. And I just dreamt of being a Test cricketer. My coach, the late Mr. K.K. Tarapo, always spoke about, you should become a Test cricketer for India. I'd love you. It'd be great if you could become a Test cricketer for India. People like Gavaskar and Vishwanath, growing up in Bangalore, were my heroes, people I looked up to, and they were great Test players. So I wanted to become a Test player for India, and that's how I trained, that's how I practiced, that's how I prepared, and that's how I sort of envisaged my career. But as I grew up, one-day cricket, especially after the 1987 sort of 1983 World Cup win in India, the 1987 World Cup in India, suddenly sort of one-day cricket started, it became a huge thing. And you wanted to be a part of that. You recognized that if you wanted to play cricket for any length of time, you wanted to also play one-day cricket. And when I started my career in 1996, for the first couple of years, I did really well in Test cricket, and I started my international career pretty well. My one-day career as well, I thought, personally at least, was going pretty well. In those days, I was sort of averaging in the mid-30s. I had a strike rate of about close to 70, which, believe it or not, when I started in 96 was actually a good strike rate. Today it would be, today they won't even give you a look in at 70, but in those days it was a pretty decent strike rate. And so when I started, I thought my career was going pretty well till 1998. I had 2 really good years. I'd done my service in first-class cricket and sort of got an opportunity to play for India. And things were going really well, and I found myself dropped from the one-day side in 1998. And it came as a bit of a shock to me, I must admit, because like I said, I thought things were going pretty well. And, I found myself out of the team. And I sort of came back, and obviously there was a sense of disappointment. And when you have that sort of sense of disappointment, one of the things you also get in India is you also get a lot of sympathy. You get a lot of sympathy. There are a lot of people around the cricketing circuit. There are a lot of people who come to you and say, "Oh no, it's really bad luck. This is terrible." I heard some amazing stuff. When I was dropped from the team, there were people who came to me and said, "No, I think you've been dropped." One person even told me, "No, I think you've been dropped because you're actually a South Indian." Somebody said, "No, I think you've been dropped because you don't get along well with the captain, or I don't think you deserve to be dropped." A lot of stuff like that, and it's sometimes quite easy to get caught up in that kind of sort of conversation, in that kind of talk, and it starts feeling sorry for yourself. But one of the best things that happened to me at that stage was my coach at that stage, Mr. Tarapo. He took me aside one day and he said, "Look, after I'd had maybe a week or 2 to sulk about it, he took me aside and said, Rahul, I think this is a great opportunity for us to really look at your one-day game and to see where to see what is wrong with it and what is it that you can improve from here. What is it that you can get better at? And it gave me a really big opportunity in 1998 to actually go back and take a really good, honest look at my one-day cricket and to see what it is that I needed to improve. How did I need to get better at it? And one of the things in that honest feedback, when I look back at it and I actually assessed my one-day games and I asked people for statistics, I started looking at a lot of the videos of me batting in one-day cricket. And I actually realized that there was a merit to a lot of the criticism that was, that I was getting at that stage. There was quite a merit to quite a bit of the criticism that I was getting, that there were times when I was getting stuck. I wasn't able to rotate the strike. I was hitting the ball straight to fielders. And there were 3 or 4 things that I did identify that, look, I needed to get better at. I needed to really improve. And we sat down with my coach and we sort of worked out a plan as to how I was going to actually improve these specific areas or these specific skills, which, when I look back on, I probably wasn't very good at. And we identified a couple of them, like I mentioned, the ability to, at times, be able to hit that big shot when you needed to. A lot of times what would happen when I first came to bat in one-day cricket is people would just bring the field in, block the singles, and I wouldn't have that release shot or be able to hit the ball over the top, to be able to push the field back and then be able to rotate the singles. So I needed to find one clutch shot. I needed to play the ball with softer hands. I tended to hit the ball very hard. It went straight to the fielders. We couldn't rotate the strike. We weren't able to take singles with my partner. So 2 or 3 of these areas, clearly were focus areas. I needed to work on them. And I spent the whole year really working on these couple of areas of my game, 2 or 3 areas of my game. And it took quite a few hours of practice. It took sort of simulating a lot of situations, simulating matches, batting on different conditions, batting against different bowlers, to be able to actually see and start seeing that improvement. Towards the end of the year in 1998, luckily I got myself back into the team. I was able to force myself back into the team at the end of 1998. I had a really good tour of New Zealand in the test matches, which is why I think it forced the selectors. Nobody else had scored runs in New Zealand. I got 100 in each innings. Maybe it just forced the selectors out of pity to give me an opportunity to play some one-day matches at the end of the tour. And the work I'd done in the preceding year, I only played 3 or 4 one-day games, and I was out of the one-day team for a long time. But the work I'd done through that year suddenly came to fruition in that tour. I got 100. I went on to the '99 World Cup and scored the most number of runs at that World Cup. And I never got dropped again from the one-day team for 8 or 9 years. When I look back on that period, and at that period, it just felt like, I look back on my one-day career, and it's something that, like I said earlier when I first started, that I wanted to be a test cricketer, and that was my dream, that was my ambition. But for me to end my career playing over 300 one-day games, to score over 10,000 one-day runs, for someone who grew up, his coach telling him don't hit the ball in the air, hit every ball on the ground. For someone who grew up where if you hit the ball in the air, it was considered a crime. For someone who grew up not being able to, hit big sixes, to finish with 300 one-day, games and over 10,000 runs, I feel was, for me, something that I'm really proud about. And I think it came through in 1998, and I was only able to do that because of the year I had in '98. The criticism that I faced, the challenges that I faced, the fact that I was dropped from the team, forced me to actually reevaluate, forced me to think about my game and really come up with completely different strategies to play one-day cricket, which helped me play 10 years of one-day cricket. So while it didn't feel like it at that time, I was really grateful for that year and the learnings that I got from it, and just the approach, and just lucky to have good advice, people to take me aside and tell me that, look, one thing you can do is feel sorry for yourself, but the other thing you can do is actually look at these areas of your game and let's see if we can make it better, and let's help you make it better. So, so that was for me one of the sort of key points in my career, which I think changed the way my career has shaped up. Obvious photograph, never gets it wrong. Whenever I ask people to guess which test match this is, it's Ram Kumar can't answer. It's Calcutta. Yeah, so it is Calcutta. I mean, it's one of those ones. It's a really obviously a very special day for me and obviously Lakshman. It was Lakshman's innings recently was voted, I think, by Cricinfo as the greatest test performance in 50 years. That 281 he got, and it was a truly exceptional performance, a truly great performance. So congratulations.
Send him a message. I said, congratulations.
Not possible without me blocking it at the other end. So yeah, he did laugh and send me a smiley. Give me half the credit at least. But you know, again, when I sort of just a bit of background to that particular test match, we lost the test match against Australia. The Australian team that had won 16 test matches in a row. We lost the test match here in Bombay. It was a period in Indian cricket when we had just, the senior group or the leadership had got together, which was, Ganguly, myself, Tendulkar, Lakshman, Srinath, Kumble. All of us got together and said, look, we needed to take Indian cricket in a slightly different direction. We were all doing really well in India. We always performed well in India. We always prepared turning tracks in India and beat everyone, which was just quite easy to do. But we never really did well abroad. And we wanted a different level of thinking, especially after the 99 tour of Australia when we lost 3-0 and got beaten in every test match inside of 3 days. We wanted a different kind of thinking. We wanted to do something different, try and change the results, try and do better abroad. And so we just put pressure on the board to get us a foreign coach. So John Wright had just been appointed, New Zealand had just been appointed. We felt that getting someone from overseas would just give us maybe a different kind of thinking, just be able to help us with how we performed overseas. Just having someone from overseas. So it was John Wright's first series as well as coach, and there was a lot of criticism of why we need a foreigner. We have Indian coaches, foreign coaches are no good, and sure enough, we go and lose the first test match against Australia very badly. And come the Calcutta test match as well. Till this day, till the third day of the test match, we were completely outclassed. I mean, Australia batted first, scored 400 runs, got us out for 170, and which Lakshman scored 50 odd as well. And we were completely outclassed for the first 3 days of the test match. And there was a huge amount of pressure that was sort of being building up on the team, building up on the leadership of the team as to what's happening. Maybe they're not taking the right decisions. Why do we need a foreign coach? Things like that. And I didn't beat these guys. And the only conversation me and Lakshman had said, look, we're so far behind the game. We're not even being competitive. We're not even competing against Australia. Let's try and make it feel like they are in a contest. We might not go on to win, but let's make it feel like they're in a contest. Let's not look too far ahead. Let's not try and think about winning this test match. Let's just try and play one ball at a time. Let's just play one ball at a time. And we said, every time we're batting in the middle, we'll just play one ball at a time and we'll keep reminding each other about it. A lot of times coaches tell you this as a youngster, just play one ball at a time, just play each ball on its merit. So we said we'll do that. We'll just play one ball at a time and we'll do it, we'll try that. And so sure enough, we started batting and so every time there was one of us lost concentration or one of us got beaten or something happened, we come in the middle, and a lot of times people ask me, what do you talk in the middle, what happens in those conversations? There was a period in 2003 and 4 when Sachin we toured Australia, and come the fourth test match in Sydney, everyone in the team had scored runs. Viru had got 195, Lakshman had got runs at Adelaide, I had got 100 at double 100 at Adelaide, Ganguly had got 100 in Brisbane. So everyone in that top 4 or 5 in the batting lineup had all scored hundreds. But Sachin, believe it or not, didn't have any runs in that series. In fact, in the 4 innings, he actually had 3 zeros out of those 4 innings. And which for a lot of us sometimes these shots that I've played. I sometimes look at photos like this that I see myself in cricket and I can't believe that I actually played shots like this. I played 164 matches, like I said earlier. I played over 330 one-day games, something I don't know the exact number. But I also played one T20 game, which I'm very proud of as an Indian. Because I did hit 3 sixes in that match and I quit. As soon as at the right time, you can hit 3 sixes, you have strike rate of 145, you can quit. So at least I can tell my children. So when my children ask me, all my children nowadays are watching cricket and they watch it. So when they ask me, what is your strike rate, I say 145. We don't need to tell them there was only one game. But I started playing T20 much later in my career. Like I said earlier, I was wanting to be a test cricketer and practiced to be a test cricketer. So T20 cricket was something completely different. Growing up as a growing up as a young man, one of the things that you were told, one of the things that's always told you by coaches is once you get set, never try and get out. Everyone gets out early, get out early, and that can happen to you. But once you're set, you shouldn't get out. You shouldn't make it a big innings. Gavaskar, once he got set, it was impossible to get him out. Those are the kind of things that you were told as a test cricketer growing up. So you can imagine my change it required for me in T20 cricket. When I started playing T20 cricket, the coaches suddenly started telling me that Rahul, the best thing that you can actually do for this team is to get a start, get up to 20, set the platform, and actually get out so that the big hitters can come and hit. So that was the kind of changes that you had to sort of do in T20 cricket. And one of the things. So when I started playing T20 cricket in the first year at Royal Challengers in Bangalore, and I found myself in a team with Jack Callis, Chandrapaul, rightly labelled by a lot of test players, playing in an IPL T20 form. But it was. And we weren't going pretty well. We weren't playing very well in T20 cricket that year. Struggling like myself, like Callis. Struggling to come to terms with T20 cricket and what it was, what it required. And it was interesting because at the same tournament, Yusuf Pathan was playing for the Rajasthan Royals at that time. And it was fascinating for me to watch Yusuf Pathan play. Yes. The NatWest Trophy, Sourav Ganguly, pretty better physical condition than now, I'm sure. But so I always tell, the thing is that Saurav's, if you actually I was telling Sourav the other day, I said if you're not a very good wicket keeper and if you're not someone who collects the ball really well, there's a good chance you could break a finger or you could hurt something, and it's pretty physically taxing as well if you want to wicket keep and then try and come out and bat like I was at number 3 sometimes or at number 5. It was never easy to do that. But I said, okay, let me try this and let me sort of take this up as a challenge, and I practiced it quite a bit, and we got hold of a wicket-keeping sort of coach or a specialist in England, and he helped me out with certain drills and practices, and I had to do a lot more extra work to actually be able to wicket keep. And there were times when I was wicket keeping through that year, and I would sort of question myself, and I would say, what's happening? Why are you doing this? Especially when I missed the stumping or I dropped the odd catch. You think, is it really worth it? Is it worth it? And say that for me it's been an incredible journey. It's a journey that I've really loved and I've really enjoyed. And I hope that some of the things that I sort of learned from it, some of these stories are very special to me. Some of these days are very special to me, and it's been a privilege to share it with some of you.
And if I may give a brief introduction with your permission. Path has been a lifer at ICICI Bank. Started off with the project finance division, after which he moved on to ICICI Venture, and then came back to the bank to handle and resolve the stressed assets. Currently he handles, and if I may count correctly, strategic solutions, portfolio management group, structured finance and syndications. Sir, if you may please address.
This program or the schedule has not been particularly kind with you. After hearing Rahul Dravid, they want you to listen to me. That's a travesty. But in any case, it's too much of talk and too many words. I'll try to keep it to a minimal. And I will try to take a few cues from what Rahul Dravid spoke. Of course, he spoke of many things, but 3 things stuck with me. One is he spoke about opportunity. 2, he spoke about going back to the drawing board. 3, he spoke about doing things differently in the context of Indian cricket team, how they used to fare in overseas matches. So probably I'll pick up these 3 kind of areas or themes and try to make it relevant for the work that we are going to do. So in terms of opportunity, I think you are one of the most important. You represent one of the most important business at ICICI Bank. You and SME, that kind of businesses. And there is a reason why this group was formed now. Why this group didn't exist 5 years back or 15 years back. And you should know about that, because that actually sets the context of what you represent, of what you are going to do, going forward. As we go about doing business, in the last few years, Indian economy has gone through a few subtle shifts. And one of the key shifts which has happened is the investment cycle in India has kind of petered out. So 10 years back, if you looked at the economic landscape in India, our investment rate as a ratio of GDP was about 38%. And now I don't know what it is, but I think it will be around 32, 31, 33, thereabouts. So there has been a significant drop of 5 to 6% of GDP in terms of the total investments that India is making. And if you delve deeper and try to figure out what characterizes India's investment cycle, you will realize that 60 to 70% of investments that go into the making of India's economy per year is actually in the domain of infrastructure. Power projects, roads, highways, airports, logistics, railways, and stuff like that. So in the last decade, India was a hot destination for private investment in infrastructure, and led by that, India achieved investment ratio of 38% of GDP. But over the last 5-7 years, and I'm sure most of you are in touch with that, what has happened to the economic landscape, that aspect of investment has has moderated, which has resulted in overall investment going down. And last decade, most of the banks, financial services companies, they were busy funding the infrastructure investment cycle and the large capex cycle. So because that has moderated, and the economy never stops, right? Whenever one engine stops or is subdued, another engine picks up. So over the last few years, what has happened is the mid-market and SMEs have become the toast of town. So and banks have also kind of migrated, and banks, financial services companies, fintechs, they are migrating towards that end. So it's becoming a kind of a symbiotic relationship. Big ticket investments, infrastructure investments coming down, new pockets of opportunity emerging, mid-market, SMEs, business banking kind of stuff, and also financial service landscape catering to them. So that is energizing that market as well and making it grow bigger. So to give a few numbers, there are 25,000 rated companies in India. Rated companies. In terms of number of incorporated entities, it will be a few lakhs. But why I'm mentioning rated is because when a company gets rated for doing some borrowings, one can assume that they're somewhere there. They're in the orbit. They're big enough or good enough for me to consider engaging with them to do business. And out of that, 5,000 companies, close to 5,000 companies belong to your end. 250 crores to 750 crores, turnover companies. So 20% of the entire landscape, just going by the rated corporates. That's a very big opportunity. Of course, it's not to say that you can go and give monies to all the 5,000 companies. You will, as you embark on your journey and you progress, you will better understand the characteristics of this market, where to lend, where not to lend. You will soon discover that there will be companies which are more lendable, which are more creditworthy, but they require less funds because they generate more cash flows. Their internal accruals are higher, and there will be a cohort of companies which are borrowing more, per company. They're the guys who are borrowing more in this cohort, but some of them are exactly the guys whom you should avoid. So all these nuances, I'm sure you'll pick up as you go through your journey. So so this was the opportunity bit. Now, if you come back to the drawing board, what Rahul Dravid spoke about, given this landscape, ICICI created this group to have a singular focus in harnessing the opportunities provided by this segment. And we all jointly created this underwriting engine and the workflow, what is called Marvel. And I'm sure that you all will marvel at this in the times to come. Now, I'm sure that you have gone through this tool, and over the next 3 days you'll go through it. But one or two things that strike my mind when I look at a engine like this is, first of all, it brings consistency in the credit evaluation process. One of our job, as an investor, as a debt provider, the key job for us is to make a good quality portfolio, right? So the next question is, how do you build quality in your work? The quality of your work will be demonstrated by the quality of the portfolio that you create. So how do you bring quality in your work? So this is a production system or a manufacturing system. It's a system, right, which is delivering credit. So how do you imbue quality into that? One of the key, determinant of quality of output of any system is the consistency of the process. If the process is consistent, you do the same thing every time, you get better quality. So this credit underwriting engine is going to ensure consistency. Anytime you get an opportunity and you take that in, after your basic evaluation, you put it through this credit engine, this system of delivery, you will see that every time, every transaction, you're going through the same set of processes. So this engine therefore will kind of ensure consistency, and it's a pretty streamlined process. So it will also help you, after you go through a few transactions, we are all very convinced that it will help you, fast track your transaction processing, because you know how to deal with it. And as Suprita said, at the end of the day, you are the most important part in this man-machine combination, because you are going to drive this machine. You will determine which case to bring into the system, because there are certain cases which you will not bring in. You don't want to go out in the market, talk to a customer, and whoever you talk to, you come and put it in this workflow. So you are going to be the lead in this, and the system is going to support you in achieving the outcome that you desire. The other aspect that I wanted to talk about is, don't look at this entire group or the credit underwriting as only an opportunity to give money. You'll soon realize that in your cohort there is going to be a very big opportunity to do things differently. And for you, doing things differently means harnessing the non-credit opportunity that this market presents yourself. Now, how do you harness non-credit opportunity? Now, one of the most important aspects that we have to keep in mind when we think about this is, we will only get as much non-credit opportunity as the value we add to the client. So when you walk into a client's premises, you have to be very clear that you have to go and add value to his life. Because non-credit income actually increases your ROE, right, without providing for capital. So if you have to make money off a client, first you have to add value to his life. Unless you add value to his life, why would he allow you to make money off him? So this is one singular factor that you should always keep in mind. Every time you go and interact with a corporate, you should think, am I adding value to his life? That is one question you have to keep asking yourself, and you have to keep asking your client and look for an opportunity where you can add value to his life, other than providing credit. That's the way to get your non-credit income. And as I said earlier, out of these 5,000 companies, you will see that a significant chunk of companies are great companies, and maybe 2/3 of this cohort will be very good companies who are credit worthy, but they don't borrow much. So there the opportunity to do non-credit income and spruce up your operating profit and ROE will come up. But for that, every time you have to be very mindful. Are you adding value to the life of that owner, the company, that CFO? So every time when you walk in, and one of the determinant of that is, when you go and interact with your customer, you should be the carrier of two types of capital: seed capital and branded capital. So by speed capital, we all understand what we mean by speed capital. When you go and interact and make a promise, you ensure that you are you deliver that at the at the highest speed. So that is something which has to be in your mind always. Speed capital. The other is branded capital. That means how does your customer make a difference between you and a host of other banks who are going and knocking at their door. As I said, every time you go and ask him, and you look for an opportunity to create value for him. So he associates your capital that you provide with branded capital. That is, yes, if I bank with ICICI, if I take this loan from ICICI, it is not just the financial capital that is going into my business. I will also gain from host of other services that ICICI Bank will offer and please my life and help me make more money. He has to associate you with that, the nature of that capital, branded capital. That is the only way to distinguish. Otherwise, financial capital is all the same. 50 crore given by us and 50 crore given by another bank, all the same. The only way to compete is on, interest rate. Of course, in the market, you will end up competing on interest rates in many situations, but you have to always look for ways to make your engagement with the client away from interest rate based engagement. It's very difficult. Most of the time, you will be actually you'll end up doing the interest rate discussion or engagement. But look for that opportunity. Try your best to move away the engagement from only based on interest rates to the other aspects of the business where you can help him. That is branded capital. That's how you add value to his life. And when you add value to his life, you'll all agree with me, he'll not mind sharing a few bucks with you. Right? So, I think you've had enough of talks and words. With this, I'll just end it. The other point that I want to mention is, this is a journey. This is the first step. I think once we, make some progress, and based on your learnings, based on your experience with this, will and augmented by your feedback, we'll also give it a try to implement something like this in other parts of the bank. So please make the most of it. Give your feedback back to the organization so that we can augment this offering and look at ways that your learning can be transplanted in other parts of the organization. All the best.
We would now like to leave the floor open for some Q&A.
Enter this passcode and your questions will keep populating. Yeah. Sure, we can do that.
It's a small group, they can ask out of it. Because typing that itself will take long.
I think, ma'am, this is a new way because people are more comfortable typing.
Start off with
That's what they.
There's a push on data science within our organization. So are we using data science to source the new business? Because we have a past data already with our organization where we've been dealing with similar clients. And now we are moving toward data science. So maybe that will help us source within this 5,000 space rather than each of us knocking on the doors of these clients and trying and doing our bit of credit. Is there a way we want to use the data science as a
Yeah. So, two parts to the thing. Credit engine, which is their part of Marble, is actually based on judgment as well as past data. So it's a mix of both. So what we try to do is that fairly good credit knowledge was used for judgment, and then backtesting was done on the data. So what you get as a credit engine is a mixture of both, and that is why what Partho mentioned now. Once you start giving feedback and by doing business, you are actually creating footprints of data for the future. So the engine actually provides for what the British used to call scope for expansion. So it thinks incrementally also, it's capturing data without it doing anything with it today. So 3 years down the line, it could be possibly a different engine.
Let me answer that question. I think what you're trying to ask is that there's a lot of data with us already. Are we leveraging that data to provide you leads to to sort of source this? So
access to data like probe and other.
Yeah. So I don't know about Marvel, but I can tell you that on the SME side, which is a similar project that was implemented, there was a CRM module where indeed we pre-filtered cases from MCA side, from your CIBIL, etc., wherever you could get from Probe, not CIBIL, but from Probe, and some of the leads that of course comes from your internal current accounts, because you do have a lot of current accounts of SMEs, were identified and put into the funnel, and then the funnel gets sort of pushed down. That is one way of acquisition. Of course, the other way is where the branch comes and tells you that there is indeed a customer who they are looking for. So this is a current account customer who is also looking for some facilities, or it's a customer who will come lock, stock and barrel. So even those sort of leads get put into the CRM. So yes, the eventual and wish list is that many leads should get generated from within the data that we have and get into the system. Yeah, but from the MMG side, at least there is an identified number of cases that already Rajesh, when he started, had identified.
So target market norms continue under Marvel.
No, his question is, you have identified some 500 cases.
I know.
Will that be put to
So it is one way to do is that where there is organized data, and the 5,000 companies which Partho mentioned is organized data. Out of that, a first set of sieving has been done, and based on target market norms has been given to all of you. Now the other opportunity sets come from down below. That is, there are a lot of partnerships and proprietorship companies which are in this segment, where we have to actually do well. If we think HDFC Bank built 100,000 crores only on this organized sector or the companies, it is not correct. It has gone into each of the cities. In fact, now I am told, I was corrected by Raman the other day, it's no longer 49 cities, it's 55 cities, which they cover. They may not be present there directly, but they cover 55 cities now. So that is the kind of data which is available, but some of it was not very organized. So the organized data is the 5,000 companies. So yeah. We will do Q&A since the third day also, but I've given zonal heads a task. They should deliver that. What it should look like.
I think I answered one question. What's the correlation of Dravid with Marvel? That was the first thing I answered.
Another thing is this question number 1. Actually, at the end of third day, I would want you all to answer that question. Not for us. I don't think, I saw a video today morning only that says that, by just changing one person at the leadership on the top, it doesn't mean that everybody has. I mean, it was a Pakistani video I saw where he says that just because you change the leadership doesn't mean if the whole system changes. It's the guy who takes, takes a longer to do certain work, or who takes money to do certain work, or who is more expensive needs to themselves change to actually push the whole engine upwards, right? So I think that question at the end of 3 days we are going to ask ourselves, all of us, you, me, everybody, and we'll answer that question together. Second, of course, he has already answered. Third, are planning for pre-approved limits in Marvel for pre-screened customers. See, I'll answer this, of course. Here, in this segment, getting pre-approvals are extremely difficult. Like we said, in the organized sector, which is that 5,000 odd cases, I'm sure we have done pre-screening and we have given it down to you. But beyond that pre-screening, because these are not really very small cases that you can look at the current account transaction and start setting up limits. And if that limits we could set up also, it would be so small that it would be insignificant for that customer. So it would lose its value. So I think approving of limits will be a little difficult in this space, but what we can do is we should endeavor to do it faster, okay? And we should be able to give the limits faster to the customer than we could do before. Very good answer.
No, firstly, I think many questions coming up. It's great. That means you're thinking. That itself is victory. So Marvel has V in that. That is the. If you engage only, then can we have a better output? So thanks that you are asking so many questions. On the aspect of this correlation of Dravid with Marvel, I want to actually add two further perspectives. And the more I see that video, I have seen it after some time. I was in the room that day. I find one theme which goes along throughout that presentation. I don't know if anybody picked it up. It's just throughout the presentation, Can somebody answer that question? I'm just saying throughout. It's one word.
All is going well. All is going
That is one perspective. I didn't think of that. But there was one thing. Okay, I'll give a clue also. It starts with S.
One goal at a time.
Sorry?
Service.
No. I'm saying it across the whole 25-30 minutes.
Service.
Now you're copying from what I said in the morning. I said, anyway, it is simplicity. See, the great thing about that talk will be that even after 4 years, you can remember, as long as you remember those images and ask yourself those questions. So when we actually articulate our thought or any aspect of it, if we are simple, it will be clearer to understand. So that's one perspective I wanted to add to what was said in the morning. Throughout the thing, it is simplicity which sort of speaks out.
So I'm going to answer some of these questions and Rajesh and Partha can come in. Okay. First of all, let me take that one which has 14 votes. I'm sure all of you want to know. How was the experience in reduction of TAT competitiveness of our proposal and pricing where we implemented similar processes for SMEG? Okay, let me tell you that SMEG, when we started off, it was launched as a pilot. Okay, you all will agree that this is not something that we bought off the shelf. This is something that we created, which required a lot of changes in the processes, in the system, in the way we submit a proposal, right? So it took a longer time for us to learn. You all have the benefit of SMEG actually. So I expect that you all should do it faster. Now, one of the biggest thing that we learned over there is 50% of the proposals were logged in, or more than 50% actually, were logged in with insufficient information or insufficient document. Now, nobody, and believe me, nobody can change the time taken for underwriting a proposal if that's the culture we have. So, point number one is that when we do implement this in MMG, we expect that a completed proposal with all the relevant documents should be logged in. So we should ideally not accept as credit anything that's incomplete. While we make that a rule in SME, we are going to make that a rule in SME very shortly. In MMG, I will leave it to Rajesh and Partha and all to decide whether we need to really accept papers that are incomplete. If it's incomplete papers, it will take the same number of days and time, because we will keep waiting for that information, right? So second thing we had in SME is that there were a lot of system glitches that we had. Okay, so sometimes certain words were not being taken, certain symbols were not being taken. So there was a lot of learning and a lot of changes. In fact, that changes are still happening in the system. So that was another reason why it took a lot of time. In fact, sometimes it took longer than it would take on a manual process. But here, of course, when we are launching it in MMG, we probably have the benefit of that hindsight, and certain changes have indeed been done, and hopefully the systems will now be smooth because the number of queries over there also have come down. So, like for example, the banking module which was there, that was part of it. CIBIL itself stopped working sometimes, and therefore we could move into the next module because CIBIL was part of it. So some of those issues we had. So I think comparing it with SME AG will be a little difficult at this point of time, because this has got a bit, we are starting from a better place. As long as you give completed document, as long as you have met the customer and people who are supposed to have read the proposal, read the proposal and submit, I can assure you it will take shorter time. Where do we do, see MMG, I said we'll speak about it later. What is the synergy of MMG with the branches like SMEG is currently with the branches? So you'll have to talk about synergy. I can talk about how SME has synergy with the branches. I don't know about MMG.
Yeah. One aspect I want to add to the first question, because that seems to be the worry, is that all of us know how to drive. Oh, rest of you don't know how to drive. Then my example is futile. Okay, great. I'm glad. No, I recently found somebody at my age also didn't learn to drive. I was very surprised. So I just asked that question nowadays. It's because future is that, right? We'll all stop driving. We don't ride horses anymore, right? So we will indeed stop driving soon, maybe the next generation. But having said that, when you look at any process, you have a manual version and you have an automated version, right? Where we were, it was in manual version. Here, it is a semi-automatic version. Now, the key thing is that if you have to reach from Bombay to Lonavala and reach in time, you will have to do certain things, right? Even in the automatic or semi-automatic version. Or is it not? You will just believe and you will come like Star Trek. ऐसा तो नहीं होगा ना? So, if you have to do that, it is a journey where both the machine and you will have to speak to each other in very logical sequences, and that is what has happened. That consistency bit, which was mentioned earlier, is about that. So, as long as we do it in that form, the TAT will be faster. Indeed, it will be faster. I want to answer that question very, very pointedly, because what a machine brings in is discipline. So if we are clear that this discipline will be followed, then indeed the automatic version will be far faster and will give you a superior experience. So that, I suppose, should allay all fears on the swiftness of the system. So will there be hitches in between? We'll see as the journey goes. But do we learn from that to play it ball by ball? The answer to that also is yes, we should. Because only then will we be able to progress from being a test player to a T20 player with return of capital in mind, right? A T20 player doesn't mean that you go and lose your wicket like Yusuf Pathan did. We have to have return of capital in mind. So, indeed, I just want to give that example that provided you drive safely and consciously, this will give you a good output as a system. But if we want to be reckless in an automatic scenario, it will not give you the right answer. If you feed in junk, it will give you a junk answer.
Branches, they want to know synergy with branches. I think that's
So some of the questions actually we'll take it offline, because I think then we do not actually listen to each other is something which is happening in the teams, because this has been articulated several times that we have synergy working. In fact, in a couple of zones, private banking teams and the branches have given us so many leads, we are finding it difficult to go and get there. In some zones, it has not happened. So each of the zonal heads will have to take it up with the RBHS to the extent you want. So 2 zones are doing it well, few zones are not doing it well. It's up to us to do it. Yes, the same synergy works, in short.
I saw one question on for plain renewal also. It took so much time for sanction. How Marvel will empower us to cut that? So we are working on a different module for plain renewals. As of now, we are just speaking to Rajesh before we entered in that for SME we have more or less finalized what we need to do on renewals, which of course is pretty simple with information that's already available with the bank. Of course, you have to get the financials. The reason you need to get the financials is because we have a QCA to be filled up, the PD score to be generated, without which it cannot be done. What we may consider, and as I said, we may consider is if the rest of the modules give us green, and if the PD score also comes as green, then we may not have a credit intervention. That's something that we're thinking about, so it will happen pretty smoothly. Okay, but I can only promise you that we will definitely make the process not only of, we'll make it both simple and speedier, and also try to see as much information that's already available with the bank to be pre-populated. You don't have to then go and get that info. What is the synergy?
Optimize redundancy and
Yeah, so I think that's exactly what we have done. If as you go through the next 2 days, the idea was only to optimize and to reduce the redundancy from the system. As you go through these 2 days, if you find that there are any more steps that you could do away with without giving away on quality and the ability to predict the delinquency, please voice it and we'll definitely have a look at it, because the idea is not to have redundancy in the system and not to make it more difficult. There are other credit engines in other segments of the bank also. How Marvel is different from them? Well, I can tell you there are no other such systems. There is because SME is completely migrating into a similar system. There is colors, because I do all SME, BLG and MMG. I can tell you there is colors. Colors doesn't have again a scorecard. It has a very rudimentary scorecard which was so far being used. Similar one was used in SME. It was something that was more of our own experiences put together without really back testing. Okay, and this is the one that's exclusive and rather been intensively back tested. Corporate, of course, we have the RAM. So this is not RAM, because there we have so much of information on the company's financials that it's a very different system. This is because we all believed that the financials don't say everything about the company. Both for SME and MMG, we do believe that the financials don't completely speak about the company. So there are other factors other than financials that are built also into this sort of QCA to generate a PD score. So there are no such other scorecards. See it in the past in MMG?
Yeah, that's what I think it will be.
Okay, so guys, you all are going to make the difference.
Correct.
If you all are not going to make the difference, then nothing is going to make the difference.
See, I think, for a short period of time, we had this group called MMG. Maybe one of you is referring to that. That was about 10 years back. Now, there are 2-3 key differences. One is, the context in which you are operating. I spoke about the economic context in which this group has been created. So that is very different from what it used to be, 10 years back. First of all, the opportunity set was much smaller those days. These guys were not being chased by financiers, because at the end of the day, it's a symbiotic relationship between economic activity and financing. Economic activity can only flourish if it is provided finance. So there are many more people chasing this particular segment. That itself is bolstering this segment and augmenting this segment. So that is one thing that is different. Secondly, 10 years back when we set up this group, we didn't have focus on non-credit income. So that is going to be different. So this time, a huge focus is on non-credit income. As I said, every time you walk into a client's premise, the only thing that you need to keep asking is, you have to look for a window of opportunity to add value to his life. I think that theme was not there 10 years back for sure. And third is this engine, or this workflow-based credit underwriting engine, where because of the consistency and the streamlined workflow, every time you go through the same hoop, the same set of processes, thereby driving quality. So these are three, big, huge differences between what it was 10 years back and what it is now.
Well, not the focus back then. We could do a 300 crore proposal in this segment and still continue, nobody questioned us. But here, that's not the culture we will grow up with. In fact, if we can be below sub 50 in all our cases and have 1,000 such borrowers, that answers the question of what we should be in 2 years. That should be the aim. So granularity is what is important. I think if we don't do granularity, we will have an outcome of disproportionate losses when you look at a case. So no one case should give us sleepless nights. I think that should be our mantra as a group. And then as the journey goes, we'll see. Only time will see whether we succeed or not.
Yeah, I read somewhere asking that what is it? Okay, how much importance one should give to collateral? I understand minimum collateral is mentioned in MMG. There are deviations in MMG also which you can take and you can make the collateral zero. But why are people insisting on collateral over here? Please understand, I started my whole conversation with you saying that it's one of the most difficult segments to fund. It is in fact in this segment that the customer will suddenly have started getting confidence and saying that I had given my house property but now I want to withdraw it because now I become big. What we should also realizing is his ambition is to become even bigger. And instead of him going and taking that collateral, keeping it with some other bank or keeping it with the NBFC and taking some funding, you should be the first person to take it. Now why are we taking this collateral at all? We are taking this collateral for two reasons. One, from a customer perspective, it's a business, right? There are ups and downs in businesses. As the company goes up and down, if it's a completely uncollateralized lending, your blood pressure will also increase to the same extent. At least if there's 100% collateral or near 100% collateral, you will tell, let me help this customer out. Let me be a little more patient with him, okay? And therefore, I may be able to give him a little more leeway. Second, if indeed there is an issue on that lending, at least you'll be able to recover something out of this customer. Believe me guys, it is not that you make money, you make money out of the collateral that's been given to you. But when the customer has some money, the first person he repays is the person or the bank which indeed has the collateral. The person who is, the bank who has no other security is the last person to be repaid. Yes, there may be one-off strange cases where you have such phenomenal, understanding of the customer or relationship with the customer where you are able to get some money. Otherwise, you don't get it. Third reason is that when you see an early warning sign, if you indeed have a collateral, it is easier to transfer this account out. To move an account out which is absolutely not collateralized, okay, is that much more difficult even after you see the stress. So from that perspective, it is for, that you should try your level best to try and get the collateral. And this guy has just migrated from being an SME, okay, to MMG. He still believes and he does understand that banks require collateral. This huge portfolio that HDFC has built or Kotak has built is all collateralized. If you believe that HDFC has done a great job and Kotak has done a great job and that you can do that great job, there is no reason why you should doubt yourself and ask yourself whether collateral is indeed required or not. Yeah? So yes, collateral is extremely important. You can always take a deviation if the customer is so. If you do believe there's a good case of Yes Bank that you want to do beyond 30 crores, please go ahead and do it. Have it rated. Yeah? There's no restriction that all of MMG cases have to indeed pass through only this mechanism. You can always go to CRMG, get a proper rating and go and get it. Can we have a standardized approach to information collection from the client for proposal preparation? Yes, there's a checklist. Okay, please follow the checklist. And beyond that, you all are all experienced guys. You all know what more questions that has to be asked. One, there is a checklist. Second, that you know the QCA, so you know that's the information that has to be asked. If you see that the bank statement has issues, beyond checking the bank statement, you know what are the questions to be asked. I think, we don't have to go through that beyond that. Can we ensure less duplication of work and have meaningful credit analysis based on material risk? That's the attempt. Okay. Will Marvel make the life of an ARM. Okay. Now ARM a little easy one. I think let Rajesh answer that. Will we have specific parameters? I've lost.
Last one.
Will be a specific parameters based exit policy. We do already have it. It's not parameterized, but there is within CRMG there is Praveen Trivedi's team who's sitting and they're going to look at all cases above 10 crores and they go and there is a mechanism by which we are identifying the green, amber and red. Amber and red is sent down to you all to discuss whether it is indeed an exit or not. Once you all decide that it is a difficult case, then we of course start monitoring. There will be a committee who will sit together and monitor it and also ask you a reverse question that if you are saying amber is not red, then why is it not red? Okay, so we will have an exit policy over there. Idea share discount to customers on fees with the maximum collateral. No. Anything else?
That's a pricing.
What else is there? I have not answered. You can answer that. Couple of questions. One is the discount also. You can answer that.
Yeah. See, on pricing and trying to look at it from a credit perspective, if you negotiate the two together, always the bank will be the loser. See, we should be clear on what collateral we require in a credit because ultimately we are risking 100. We are getting 2-3 rupees in return per 100. So, my view on this negotiation is they are two separate. And I think just to give an example, if I may take the recent example of 2 weeks old Raman, where the promoter, I spent some 1 hour meeting him, etc., all that happened, but he refused personal guarantee. With his track record, we said, don't even waste anybody's time, don't even go to credit with this structure, just let it be. So I think that message should go down in even the industry, that now ICICI Bank operates in this way, and it is not about inflexibility, it is about what is our culture. We want something, deal with us with what we want, and then we will deal with you. I think that has to be a sort of way in which we function, and automatically the guys who like to deal like that will come to us rather than the others. That will happen. You will have to give it time, it will happen.
Yeah, I think one is pricing, the second is understanding the customer and his other business. I mean, I'm telling you of an instance. I went to Delhi just last week, and there was this customer whom we have approved a facility, and he's not taking the loan. The simple reason was that we had put a negative lien on a property that was valued 100 crores. crores. Now he was saying, I want to sell this property, and there's a negative lien, can you remove this negative lien? We obviously, for the right reasons, we were stuck on saying that you have to take our NOC before you actually sell the property. There was a reason why we have put that. Now, for that, we lost the deal to Citibank. The reason we lost the deal to Citibank is Citibank came with exactly the same approval, no change in pricing, except that they did not put a negative lien on it. Now, as I said there, I just told him, no, we don't really need the negative lien. What you can do is that indeed you can just inform us before you sell it and route the cash flow through us. Now, if you think about it, there is no difference between the two of it. Okay, because the reason why we wanted a negative lien is that if there were delinquencies or if there was a behavioral problem at our end, we will not let him sell it and we will somehow create a nuisance value and recover the money. The other way around was that you are informing me beforehand and therefore, and the money has to be routed through me, and so I know the money will come into my account, and if there is a negative behavior at my end, I can actually put a lien and set off on that account and do it. So there was no difference between the two. Now I think we need to start thinking about it, and at that point of time I asked him, what other businesses do you have? And he had two very successful businesses which were nowhere in that paper, okay, which was sent to me. And there were huge amount of cash flows over there with zero debt, which was being routed through Axis Bank and HDFC and SBI. Zero debt on both the companies. And I told him, sir, I am very upset with my people that they have not really understood what your business is all about, and we should have actually got you to actually, at that time I thought there was lending, be with us on those accounts. He said, no, I am not borrowed over there. I said, good, that's what we want. We don't want you to borrow, but why is the cash flow being routed through anybody else? It should have happened through us. So eventually he wrote back to me saying that while I have already given Citibank my word that I will take the facility from them, and I can't go back on my words, but just to honor the commitment I have given to you, I am closing all my other accounts with all other banks, and I am routing the entire cash flow to you for the other two companies, and I promise you that this company, when I sell that land, I will move this company lending after a year to the bank. Okay. Now the point is, have we understood the customer well enough? If we had got all this cash flow, in fact here there was no pricing issue, but we could have actually lowered a pricing just a little bit. Okay, because we are getting, and that cash flow is much more than the cash flows of the company who we are trying to fund actually. So in a way it's lucky that we are not now lending anything and we are getting all the cash flows into the bank. So I think it's up to us, and pricing is not the only thing. There are many other things beyond pricing that we ourselves have to be comfortable with to be able to speak and negotiate with the customer. Okay, if you can do that, and if you can get all his other relationship, pricing for you all will not be an issue, according to me. Okay, I'm not the person on the sales side, but I still believe so. Anything else?
What is the third question?
Third.
Third question.
Will Marvel make the life of a
No.
Will Marvel make the life of a ARM simple?
No, not that.
No?
The one before.
No,
And the third one?
so that fourth one, let's experience it tomorrow and then you answer it at the end of the day. No? Let's why to sort of answer it in yes or no.
No, but third one is whether it can be debugged. No, there is no bugs as of now that we think when we are launching Marvel. What happens is typically when we launch a automated system and we allow a leeway of another system, typically because we're so used to doing things in a particular way, we will never adopt the new way of doing things. And then we need all the data at the back end to be stored. We want to learn from it, we want to experiment with it, we want to make our scorecard even better, our ability to predict even better, and we need to do renewal on this only. Okay, if we start giving these two separate, we will have failed on all of it. So the idea is the reverse. Let's start with the fully automated one. Let's start with Marvel, and little bugs will keep coming. I'm not promising you that it will be clean, okay? But we'll handle it as we go. Yeah, we should manage.
No, I don't think that was the intent of the question.
Yeah,
The question is, if there is a debugging required or something that is becoming a showstopper there, can we run a parallelly present system? That's what is being asked.
No, exactly what my answer is. No, you can't do it, because the minute you do that, you will at the drop of a hat say this is going to cause me a issue for one day. So you can't keep going back and forth into a manual system and then automated system. It will lose its complete relevance. Anything else that is remaining unanswered here?
everyone work in your groups and just take 5 minutes to come up something common amongst yourselves. And it's, I mean, it could be anything, right? It could be food, it could be TV series, it could be anything. But the idea is for you to get to know your teams better before we get into some intense sessions throughout the 3 days. So just take 5 minutes within your groups. Also, it has to be a common interest or liking. It doesn't have to be.
We are all righties, right-handed. We all have 2 legs. We have a head. Hopefully, we use it at times. So I think, but एक instant, spontaneous response. We all like alcohol. So yes, anything particular said, कुछ भी चलेगा. So I think everybody was unanimous on alcohol and कुछ भी चलेगा.
Sushil, we can't hear you. Sushil, we can't hear you.
Adventure in travels.
Good afternoon, everyone. We don't have a group name yet, given by.
No, everybody is actually just one group.
Okay, we are already now we want out the group name. And we all like Rajnikant, except one. Our son likes Rajnikant's friend Amitabh Bachchan. That's common. And the second is we all play cricket. I watch cricket. He is a batsman. He is a bowler. We both are all-rounders. And we all like to eat anything which is cooked well, especially if it's named as biryani.
Large majority of them are from Gujarat, so it goes with Southern Players, with that community. But the main community was that everybody likes preparing tea, so that was one thing. And the second thing was that everybody is a fan of Kohli.
The common thing between us is we all like networking, we all like to play badminton, we all like Rasgulla, and we are all workaholics.
We all like mixing. So, next time please arrange an offside and Goa.
Group name is Play, and one thing common is that we like Saturday nap after our meals.
So we all have been hearing about Marvel for past few weeks, and in the morning we discussed quite a bit. In the next 30 minutes, 45 minutes, I will walk through some of the details of it. What is the genesis of it? Where we started? How actually we built it? What you are going to get out of it? Right? What is the implication on you? So before I go into the we have a short video which will also hopefully basically summarize for you our activities in last few months.
For ICICI Bank, needs of mid-corporate companies fall between those of large corporates and SMEs. ICICI Bank aims to double down on mid-corporates to further tap into the opportunity and growth in this space. Introducing Marvel, mid-corporate accelerated returns via efficient lending. Marvel focuses on 2 key areas: credit underwriting and process and technology. For credit underwriting, Marvel brings modular credit assessment, leveraging qualitative and quantitative aspects, granular underwriting at an individual customer level, uniform credit architecture across industries, and integration of internal and external data. For process and technology, Marvel brings digitized process, leaner ICOS workflow, and less manual entry with automated and pre-populated fields. How does that impact all of us? For the RM and credit team, simpler, faster, and efficient process. more time for customer-facing activities, objectivity in credit assessment. For the customer, clearer expectation setting, streamlined documentation requirement. For ICICI Bank, risk-calibrated growth. Marvel by ICICI Bank.